What would uranium taste like? And how long could it feed a person until they naturally run out of calories? A benign, fun hypothetical that you decide to look up online, because you saw all of those memes talking about bulking by just eating raw uranium, and what if there was some truth to it? The forced Google AI response tells you that it's tasteless, and it can actually contaminate water and poison you. Okay, that was a bit darker than you expected, but you decide to look at what other people had to say about this, and maybe there's a story there of someone eating uranium on accident. You're asked for cookies, which you sheepishly accept because it's faster than denying them, and being forced to choose which ad options suit you best. After a while, you get bored and switch from the big computer on the table to the small computer on the bed. Not long after your initial search for uranium, you start getting more science-related videos in your YouTube recommendations, and start seeing ads for power plants near you. Huh, that's weird, but everybody knows Google steals your data and there's nothing you can do about it. A certain video catches your eye. Israel's illegal nuclear weapons program, and what is the Samson option? It turns out, nobody knows exactly how many nuclear weapons Israel has, because they refuse to let them be independently inspected. And they have continued to make them, even when this is very illegal on a global scale. The Samson option is a protocol that seeks to nuke every major city on Earth if Israel is ever in danger of collapsing. So, this entity wants to nuke everyone if it fails somehow, with nukes they illegally acquired and are hidden in locations not even the United States knows about. You share this info with your friend on Discord, and both of you agree that Israel's nuclear program is extremely shady. And maybe Iran isn't actually the nuclear threat to the world, but Israel. Before you can even finish typing that sentence, Palantir paladins storm your house and start brutally beating you. The few jumbled words you can make out are, "Citizen, you have criticized greatest ally. Your Palantir credit score has hit 0, and now you will be moved into Alligator Alcatraz." All of this happened due to new laws which allowed them to decrypt all of your messages at any time. I'm afraid this is going to be a reality soon. Actually, I don't think we're that far off from it. If you're a zoomer on the internet, you probably know just how much you're being monitored on the web, or at least you should be aware of it. Maybe you've heard PSAs about how hackers can hack into your facecam and film you without your consent, which is true. And so is the fact that our iPhone cameras can be accessed by various three-letter agencies if they need to. But that one's kind of obvious as well. Especially if you're using services like the cloud or something. If your phone is working and has access to a Wi-Fi router, your IP address can be tracked. The specific model your phone is. What you have named yourself in your contacts. All of that can be easily identified. Your phone is grade A spyware. Never forget that. Every message you send. Everything in that dirty little notes app of yours. Don't be shy. I know you have some real dark thoughts in there. Your camera roll, your Finsta, and your 47 alternate accounts. None of it is safe. None of it is truly private. It is an absolute goldmine of information that you might believe to be private. Just like an 18-year-old British student named Aditya Verma did. In July of 2022, Verma sent a private message to his friend while he was boarding a flight on Snapchat saying, "On my way to blow up the plane, I'm a member of the T-Ban." The message was then quickly intercepted, through means that remain unclear to this day. Nobody should have had access to his private messages, in theory, but those dirty British Schweinehunde got it, and they passed it along to Spanish authorities so they could send fighter jets to his location. He certainly got a Jet 2 holiday. Yikes. He made the crucial mistake of being British and a bit too cheeky. There's a reason so many fictional dystopias take place in Britain. So once he landed, they detained him immediately, and arrested him. He was almost ordered to pay for over £100,000 in damages, but luckily, the court ruled that there was no way he knew his private messages could be intercepted without his consent at a moment's notice. That was 3 years ago, in 2022. Now, we're looking at an EU-wide attempt to decrypt all private messages, so not even specialized encrypted messaging services like Telegram and Threema will be safe. The proposal is called Chat Control, with the majority of the EU member states supporting it. I wonder why. A lot of Zoomers have just accepted our constant violations of privacy as a fact of life, even though it should not be normal for Google to be constantly listening to your conversations to give you targeted ads to tempt you to waste money in an economy which is standing on 2 left baby feet and half a prayer right now. Not only are your words being tracked, but your user behavior as a whole. If you look at certain videos on YouTube, the algorithm will try to guess several things about you, like your gender for example, and your cultural background. It's not perfect, but usually it's pretty damn close. They have your user behavior mapped out to a T. And these are just private companies we're talking about. Governments have surveillance methods not even dystopian novels could come up with. A lot of us can also have a tendency to post our real faces attached to our real names on sites like Facebook, for example, so you can be stalked with maximum ease. If someone's got your name, or the company you work at, and you have an open Facebook account, you might as well be an open book. Oh, so that's where the name comes from. Cyberstalking is way more common than people think, since it's quite anonymous, and most people don't have the guts to ask out their crush, so they learn everything they can about them online. And just so people are clear, when you upload your face to a site like Instagram, they will likely use your face to train their own AI models. Since Facebook, or Meta I guess, has an immaculate history with user privacy concerns. Actually, I think people don't value their privacy enough with our current laws. Knowledge is power. In the age of AI deepfakes and AI video generation, you're exposing your face to potential criminals who want to use it for nefarious reasons. Or they could already be impersonating you, especially if you're a woman. I used to know a guy who took the Insta pictures of his female classmates to bait old men into giving him money. And that's just some random guy. There's like millions of them out there. I believe there is very little to be gained from you posting your face online. I assure you, there are better ways to boost your ego out there. Of course, you could do this to your LinkedIn account, which in my opinion is again, an absolute goldmine for spying and data harvesting, but here's a pro tip. You can alter your face with Photoshop quite a lot before people notice. Enough so that you can even pass off as a different person, and if anyone asks, it's just an older picture. Just be sure to not make it too extreme, like changing your skin color for example. But sure, you probably understand that the only thing these corpo people and tech zealots worship is money, and the machine god. So of course, social media is being used to create the most addicting and engaging algorithm possible, so you spend all of your time on their platforms. But what if the government profiled you like that? Well, it already does. There are certain keywords and search terms which mark you in a system as a potential suspect, so you can be investigated remotely. You have already been monitored for a long time now. Once there are no mainstream forms of anonymous online communication, the internet will be changed. For the worse. The systems of surveillance are already in place. As we saw with our Verma case, the infrastructure works, and it works amazingly well at that. Only 20 minutes to intercept a message is quite impressive. So imagine the Trump administration having access to this technology because they do. And this was only 3 years ago in 2022, but in reality, another plane-based event was the catalyst for the mass surveillance we experience to this day. 9/11. It somehow always leads back to 9/11. I guess you should never forget about it for a reason. So, after the attacks, the whole country was in shock, and they wanted revenge against the people that did this. They were fiending for it. And with the pretense of the attack, it was much easier for the government to claim that the country needs more security to prevent any future incidents, and they used all of these emotions to their advantage to pass the Patriot Act of 2001, where law enforcement and intelligence agencies were greatly expanded both in funding and scale. That's when the Department of Homeland Security was created, which is pretty ubiquitous now. Kind of insane to think about that this was all after 9/11. And of course, after the attacks, the TSA got a lot stricter, and airport security in the US was never the same again, to everyone's great annoyance, since in spite of the harsher rules and inspections, not many attacks were prevented by them, if at all. But this was just right after the attacks. People at the time thought these precautions were necessary, since the US started the War on Terror, and a country at war must be diligent in its internal affairs and security details to prevent further attacks from the biggest enemies of the US at that time, Iraqi women and children. After all, how do you achieve over 1 million civilian casualties if those people weren't secretly extremists just waiting to strike the US back? Then, as the debacle in the Middle East went on, kind of like today, people started to realize that the war on terror was more like the war to get more oil and resources. But in the controversy, they managed to sneak in the FISA Amendments Act of 2008, specifically under Section 702 and 703, which allowed the government to start a bulk collection of foreign communications where large amounts of American data were swept up, incidentally, quote unquote. As you can see, there were also a lot of happy accidents during this time period, where the US government could accidentally collect all of your data without your knowledge. 2008 also saw an increase in the use of national security letters, where there were secret subpoenas compelling corporations to hand over user data with gag orders, which prevented disclosure and silenced the government's completely unlawful breach of privacy. America, a country so free, the government can do whatever it wants, even if it wants to stalk non-US citizens. But how did we find out that behind closed doors, state officials were abusing their power in the name of counterterrorism? Meet the American hero Edward Snowden. An NSA contractor turned whistleblower after he found out the sheer scope and scale of the data collection operation. He leaked thousands of classified documents, showing that the NSA was collecting all Americans' phone call metadata, even if you weren't a targeted suspect. And he leaked things like the PRISM program, which gave the NSA direct access to data from companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and even Yahoo, if you remember that. It's almost unbelievable how far this whole operation went. We're talking emails, chats, cloud files, metadata, and more. Remember, in the US at the time, if you're innocent and not under suspicion, they should have had access to no data of yours. Zero. These surveillance methods were and still are so intrusive, it's like doing a cavity search on all of your citizens, just to make sure they aren't hiding any weapons of mass destruction in their booty. But it doesn't end there. These companies denied the NSA direct access, which I personally think is not the case anymore, but they did authorize massive data requests from the NSA. Then the National Stalker Agency had the goal to introduce the X-keyscore search tool, which let analysts query massive databases of internet traffic. Snowden described it as, quote, letting the NSA collect nearly everything a user does on the internet. They also allowed themselves to do upstream data collection, in which the NSA could tap directly into fiber optic cables, and this allowed the capture of huge volumes of international communications. So if you thought you were safe since you're not a US citizen, this couldn't be further from the truth. They did this crap to anyone, even their own European allies. They stalked everyone they could in the name of freedom and security. Which is happening again, but in another form in 2025. They've been doing the same crap for likely over 20 years now, and I'm not even finished with the list of privacy breaches. I'd like for you to keep this in mind. 2 decades of illegal data collection, and a breach of privacy with no real punishment for it. So they are probably still using tools such as the boundless informant, which allowed them to intercept up to billions, with a B, of phone calls and emails every day. Billions of messages, all being collected every day, and let me reiterate, the technology has only ever improved since then. The NSA is likely collecting data from you watching this very video. Especially if you're from a country which is part of the Five Eyes Alliance, in which the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and of course the US have all agreed to use the other country's spies on their own citizens so they can bypass domestic laws. This just shows that for top officials, rules and laws were made to be bent and broken. They mean nothing to them, since in theory, all of this undermines the Fourth Amendment, which is the protection against unreasonable searches. And this violates pretty much all privacy laws that have existed up to that point. Well, at least anything that doesn't involve spies kidnapping you and performing regular X-rays so they can be extra sure that you're not breaking any laws. The NSA created a system of mass suspicionless surveillance, where not only is all of your data being collected 24/7, but it's also stored in some unknown facility. Every dick pic, every cheeky text, every racy joke you ever wrote and sent, all of this is stored somewhere in a file with your name on it, just waiting for you to become someone they don't like and blackmail you. As Snowden said himself, they're not after bad guys, they're after the ability to collect everything and store it forever. So Gen Z has already been living in a surveillance state, at least if you're from a Western country, for 2 decades. Why are they suddenly making their draconian privacy and safety laws public? The consumer gains nothing from this new ruling. Absolutely zero. The only creatures that profit are corporations, government institutions, and the ultra-wealthy, since they own said corporations. As to why they're going mask off, I think they don't have the resources, nor the will to keep the propaganda machine going at full capacity. So you might as well just go full Big Brother. There is this myth that you shouldn't be afraid of any of this if you're a good, law-abiding citizen, but that is just a flat-out lie. These corporations and government organizations do not have moral incentives for their actions. At least for the most part. If they did actually act according to some rigid set of morals, our world wouldn't be as messed up as it is today. The way they define a good person is based on how obedient they are under these conditions, since actions like protesting against a genocide are considered immoral. Matter of fact, oftentimes the people who end up in powerful governmental positions or higher-ups in corporations are antisocial psychos, because our current systems, like capitalism for example, reward behaviors where you put money over people. And this is also a key takeaway. When analyzing these decisions, we cannot look at them from the perspective of an average person. We get a much clearer picture if we look at this from a Machiavellian perspective. Realistically, why would Google implement a YouTube policy which guesses your age and either restricts certain videos or forces you to verify your identity? Well, for one, they can sell your data to places like the government, a business practice that has been tried and true for tech companies for decades. Like Facebook, for example. They got exposed for selling the data of their clients to the government, got a slap on the wrist, and nobody really did anything about it. If we just for once in our life learn from our past mistakes, we can see that YouTube and its owner Google will do the same. Now you might be thinking, well, I've got nothing to hide right now, and I'm willing to sell my data since it's practically worthless. This might be true, for now, but if at any point throughout your life you choose to become a more interesting person, somebody more revolutionary for example, or somebody who likes to live in the woods and threaten the feds with homemade pipe surprises, they are sure as hell going to use the data they have collected from you previously to piece together your identity, and then make you disappear or send you to Alligator Alcatraz, or whatever cringe Arbeitslager they've come up with this time. Some of you watching might be very young right now, and trust me when I say this, you do not want to screw your future self over this bad. We don't know what the future exactly looks like, and we don't know how much more authoritarian and Orwellian some governments around the world are going to get, but giving up your online anonymity for the sake of some YouTube videos is not worth it. And if we look at our current political landscape right now, the Trump administration is mobilizing the military to seize control of entire cities, and they're using a Gestapo-like secret police to detain anyone they suspect of being an illegal immigrant, even detaining regular US citizens for no reason other than racism potentially. Privacy is protection against tyranny. They can't arrest you if they don't know who you are, but if they do, they can make an example out of you to suppress potential dissidents of their decisions. Activists or political dissidents who give up their identity usually end up paying for it in prison time, or their lives, and it also has the side effect of making organization of mass movements much more difficult. And I'm not being malicious here. The West has put so much pride in their free speech and freedom-loving policies, but again, surprise surprise, they don't care about free speech at all. In countries like the US, England, and Germany, anti-Zionism is equated to anti-Semitism, even though Zionism is a political movement, which is separate from Judaism. And it is separate from the Jewish people. It's gotten so bad that wearing a keffiyeh can be considered an act of terrorism. It's just a piece of cultural clothing, mind you. It isn't even tied to anti-Semitism. It simply has deep roots in Palestinian culture. This is also why I'm extra concerned about this blatant online surveillance. The West is actively supporting censorship, and they expect the average person to just sit there and watch, while some maniacs are actively trying to erase Palestinian culture and their people. With the current systems of mass narrative control failing, there is now growing dissent from the average person, and surprise surprise, the self-proclaimed freedom-loving, liberal democracies do not represent the will of the people, and they will actively go against the interest of the average person to benefit the ruling class and the 1%. Don't believe me? I riddle you this. If these Western liberal democracies actually had the people in charge, do you think that they would vote for continuous inflation and stagnant wages in spite of said inflation? Would they still support extremely unpopular foreign terror states? I don't think so. The average person tends to vote for a party or person who they believe will make their life better and easier, which is why populism is so popular. Duh. But these politicians never fulfill their promises, and after they gain power, nobody holds them accountable. Why do we just have to take their word for it? And why are there no systems to hold corrupt politicians accountable? Well, allegedly, the judicial system is supposed to have a system of checks and balances, so that a politician doesn't overstep their boundaries. But if the judges aren't in charge of the executive force, what are they gonna do against them? Wag their finger at them angrily? We are literally seeing this happen live in the US, where Trump continuously breaks various rules, not giving people their due process, but there are no repercussions because his administration holds more power of the executive force. It all boils down to the factual reality of who has the monopoly on violence. And equality in a quote-unquote liberal democracy is a joke if a lobbyist can just buy more voting power. Like that throws your whole claim of equality out the window. Any sort of lobbying must be forbidden for a democracy to function justly. But that doesn't happen. Political parties are allowed to accept donations, and these donations can make a massive difference in having much more of an outreach, and being able to build a much more powerful propaganda machine. You can have a political party with the best policies and ideas, but they don't matter if you don't have the money to advertise them. In most Western countries, their elections boil down to an advertising contest of popularity. But popularity doesn't translate to good policy making, or a good leader. Need I remind you that the famous Austrian painter was initially elected? I'm saying all of this so you can see how we are already living in a 1984-esque situation. Although that comparison has been made so many times, let's choose a different piece of dystopian fiction for once. Like Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. In the book, before the government even starts to infamously burn books they don't approve of, they start simplifying them, or adjusting them to fit their narrative. And I think this is actually the stage we're currently at. So while many people have only now realized that our Western democracies are actively suppressing the will of the people and taking away our right to privacy, this has been going on for a while now. And as the saying goes, those who don't move won't notice their own shackles. The politicians' faces change, but their policies and interests stay the same, because the people who have the money and own the most amount of private property stay the same. We are not transitioning into authoritarianism or a police state. We've already been that for a while, and they're becoming much more obvious with it because they know a crisis is coming. AI, population decline, you name it. I don't even know what will come first. You might be thinking that is a bit extreme, but But do you know what's more extreme? Ethnic cleansing. Silence is also consent, and inaction is still inaction. So we have to start organizing and making plans for action. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. When it comes to our personal rights and our human rights, do not even give them an inch, because they'll take a mile and run with it to the finish line. We cannot accept any infringement of our rights, whatsoever, because eventually we'll be left with none. It's not silly to fight these laws with such vigor and resistance, and it's not an over-exaggeration. It's about survival. And I just have to say, the audacity to infringe upon the people's online anonymity while still not releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files is the peak of hypocrisy, the epitome of rules for thee and not for me. He was evil. Jeffrey was so evil that his crimes are not safe to talk about on YouTube. Everyone knows what he did, and everyone knows that he's best buddies with Trump. If the average British person is forced to send a picture of them sticking their tongue out like a good little dog just to have a wank after a hard day's work, then we should have the courtesy to see all of the files related to a known criminal. So we can arrest and persecute everybody that was involved, no matter their status, because no one should be above the law. And those who think that's the case should taste the people's fist. If we're really in a democracy where everyone is equal, then why not abolish privacy for everyone? Let me see Hillary Clinton's emails, or all the files related to UFOs. We're literally being harvested for information, politically, commercially, and maliciously. So let's see if this applies to our politicians as well. The audacity to claim this harvesting of our personal, private information takes place in order to protect the children somehow is so maddening to me. First of all, if they cared about the children, the government's first priorities would likely be guarantee food, housing, and safety for any child. No child should be starving or homeless. In fact, no person should be starving or homeless. But a child even more so, since they can't live on their own. Let's think about this logically. What issue should be a higher priority? Kids starving on the street, or Johnny hearing a curse word on YouTube? Obviously, it's a lot harder to implement policies that actively fight against poverty, rather than writing some code that's like, oops, you're naughty, you must prove you're 18 to me so you can watch big-bellied furries on Twitter. But a government shouldn't be about doing what's easy, it should be about doing what's best. Especially when it comes to the people it's supposed to be serving. The existence of starving children and their prevalence already puts the whole Protecting the Children Act into question. Then we have the issue of the completely underfunded school systems in most countries, and the fact that in some countries, especially the US, have an extremely short maternity leave. And then we also have scientists actively telling us that internet access at a very young age will likely be bad for your child. And I personally think children and young teens should not be on social media websites, period. We've done countless studies, and we have mountains of evidence that these apps are designed to be as distracting and as addicting as possible, and this effect is only amplified in children. So if you are a bad parental figure, and to give your child early unrestricted access to social media, then your child might develop severe difficulties with concentration. These social media platforms can shorten their attention spans greatly, and it will lead to them internalizing terrible habits, which are extremely hard to break, like checking your phone every time you're bored, or doom scrolling when you have nothing to do. I think kids should be allowed to use messaging services for communication, but if it goes any further than communication, then I think we need to restrict children from the internet altogether. I know they might get angry about it, or protest, but here's the thing. Either we manage to create an online space that is safe for children to congregate, or we have a space where adult themes and content is allowed. These two inherently don't mix. Otherwise, you end up with something where children are exposed to things they shouldn't be way too early, and adults having to deal with the maddening restrictions put in place which don't even apply to them. All of this Orwellian policing in the name of children's safety is also completely useless on top of being a terrible idea in the first place, because it doesn't prevent bad parenting. Bad parenting is the true underlying cause of children being exposed to things they shouldn't be. You can put all of these age restrictions in place, only for a mother to give her son her personal iPad logged in as an adult, so he has access to all the same content his mom does. If left unattended, most kids will always find a way to watch media they aren't supposed to, and it is the duty of the parents that their children don't end up in online spaces that are dangerous to them. I can personally attest to this, because I remember being a youngster, and using the school computers which had heavy restrictions on them for adult sites, but me and my friends easily managed to surpass them by typing in ecchi instead of corn into the search bar. To be clear, we were not gooning, we just wanted to mess with the teacher, but point is, not only is it super easy to get access to NSFW content online as a minor, trying to classify all media through an 18+ filter is a logistical and an IT nightmare. There are too many variables to account for, and too much subjectivity and gray areas involved. So fun fact, parenting existed before the invention of the iPad. Kids can be entertained without these smart devices. I know it can be demanding for the parents, especially if both of them have jobs, but I believe you can make compromises. Hell, if you ask me, I think video games probably do less harm to children psychologically than social media, while still being very fun and engaging. The issue of insufficient parenting is actually much broader, since you can have a kid at any time after puberty, and there's basically zero classes in school that teach you about parenthood. Even if it was just the basics, I feel there is a massive systemic room for improvement in teaching potential parents how they should handle their kids. But of course, this would take a governing body which actually cares for its population and wants them to succeed, rather than creating as many easily exploitable economic units as possible. On another note, YouTube Kids exists, so I don't know why YouTube in particular has been trying to make its main site YouTube Kids 2 Electric Boogaloo, and I'm sorry, I just lied to you. I know why they're doing this, and the answer is once again, money! They want the cleanest, most family-friendly videos, so YouTube can put their gambling ads, scam ads, and goonbait games right in front of little Timmy over here. What a wholesome video sharing experience. This is beyond frustrating to me as a creator, that I'm forced to be Virgin Mary over here, only being able to monetize a video if I conceived it through immaculate conception, with a pure sacred heart, not uttering a single naughty devilish word, while they get to put big boobed anime women on screen trying to get me to invest in the world's first pachinko machine cryptocurrency, where you have to gamble to get a chance at earning a single pachinko crypto token. A lot of ads on YouTube are not family friendly, because their detection of such material is absolute garbage, and my guess would be that they don't really care what you're advertising as long as you're paying them the big bucks. Like, look at this! I can't even put examples in my video without being demonetized, yet they have shown this crap on their actual website. I don't know how many times I've gotten ads for free gems in Clash of Clans or Clash Royale, dubbed over with the cheapest, crappiest AI voice, or it's a Bangladeshi man in his 20s, no in between. And YouTube is just the start. Twitter X is even worse when it comes to this. 70% of the whole site are just cornbots trying to either sell their OnlyFans page to you, or just outright scam you. I'd argue that the most popular social media websites, for the most part, have a very bad track record of ensuring the ads they show align with their policy terms. And this is obviously extremely hypocritical, and it shows that they don't care about children's safety, nor does the government, because they could have passed more legislation and laws in regulating this type of advertisement, and ensuring that social media sites have to enforce their rules, but nope, they're just itching to enact 1984. The UK bans on adult websites have shown to be extremely controlling, and it also made me wonder if they took some inspiration from one of the bullet points of Project 2025, which was to ban pornographic material. I guess British conservatives thought this was a great idea. Facial verification to get access to a goon sesh might just be one of the most humiliating experiences you can experience right now in Britain, besides being British of course, but the ban goes beyond adult sites. Even sites like Steam and Spotify are affected, and EU officials are rushing to make this ruling EU-wide. I'd also like to mention that none of these rulings have been voted for by the European people, which is just a shining example of European democracy, where you will smile into the camera and give your local government your ID like a good little boy, so you can continue your grind of owning nothing and being happy. Another thing I hate about this policy is that it assumes that teenagers are incapable of watching more mature content, even if it is to their benefit. Let's say a video about how to test if your weed is laced gets flagged by the system as content for 18 and up, and some 16 or 17-year-old wanted to make sure he isn't getting some fent with his dope. I know this might be shocking, but teenagers can smoke, drink, have sex, and partake in all sorts of mature activities. If you disallow them from viewing content around those themes, it's not going to stop them from doing stupid things. Now they're going to be less knowledgeable and prepared when doing them. Actually, what constitutes a video being for people over the age of 18 only? Do they have to swear thrice in a row, say a slur, put some titties on screen? YouTube is infamously vague when it comes to enforcing its policies. So for YouTubers who regularly make videos on this accursed site, it turns into an even bigger guessing game if the AI detection will determine your channel to be mature or not. And we know that AI is notoriously terrible at this. For example, a lot of gaming channels have a tendency to get flagged as content for younger audiences, simply because they're playing Minecraft, for some reason. But you can play Minecraft and talk about mature topics or make provocative jokes. Will I be put into the kiddie corner if I watch Markiplier's Five Nights at Freddy's Let's Plays? Maybe. Or what if I listen to Minecraft music to fall asleep? Will I be put in the age cage then? Not all content can be categorized as either for children or for adults. A lot of the times, it's for everybody. Funnily enough, I've seen a lot of cases where media which was intended for kids ends up having a much more mature audience, like the infamous bronies of My Little Pony, while a video game about war, intended for mature audiences like Call of Duty, ends up having a very young fan base. Also, this ruling will be useless for a teenager with a more mature taste in media, since the AI will just think that they're 18. And as I said before, I don't think teens should be isolated from mature content entirely, since oftentimes, they have the maturity to properly understand it. And it can be a great way to cope for them, potentially. For example, what if a teen is depressed and starts listening to Linkin Park to cope with their emotions? Their songs have mature themes, yet artistry often transcends these barriers. Music can make you feel better, or make you view things from a new perspective you haven't thought of before. And a lot of kids and teens start to develop their own character through their music choice. Or should we stop 8-year-olds from listening to Bohemian Rhapsody because it talks about ending a man's life? Will Bohemian Rhapsody traumatize the child and make them turn to violence because they want to follow the lyrics of the song? I know it's ridiculous, but this whole thing is ridiculous. Where do we draw the line? That's why I think having one platform that's for adults, teens, and young kids all at the same time is not possible. The overlap between different topics and arbitrary reasoning for what is considered mature is too great to compensate for with an algorithm. So either keep these groups separate, or accept the reality that unsupervised internet access will 100% expose minors to adult content they're not supposed to see yet. I think another reason for these restrictions being implemented is because they want to verify the users are indeed human. So advertisers know they're paying to get their ads seen by real people and not advanced bots. It is true that the internet as a whole right now has a massive bot infestation issues. Bots are nearly indistinguishable from real users, so companies pay real money to get their ads seen by fake viewers, and content creators make content for those fake viewers because they still get paid for the largest amount of views. They don't care if the viewers are fake or not, so they keep growing. The companies keep paying, and people are making money, even though in reality, nothing is being advertised. I can understand how this is an issue. However, people have come up with less intrusive solutions to prove they are indeed human, like a $0 payment for example. But it does seem like they want to make ID verification necessary for other reasons. Remember, always look for the one who profits the most out of an arrangement. If we look at history, a state might become more authoritarian if it wants to implement something it knows is going to be unpopular, or if they want to keep a hold of their power in spite of not representing the people anymore. I personally think states all over the world have broken their part of the social contract, which we didn't even consent to, over and over again, making it more or less meaningless. The only way a contract can work is if you also have the means to enforce it. If the government does something you don't like, and you and the general public are against it, yet there's nothing you can do to enforce your disagreement, then it is not a contract. You're just being held at gunpoint. Let's look at this realistically. Every time they take more of our freedoms away, are we supposed to just protest peacefully, pray that they change their mind on it, and if they don't, we'll protest peacefully even harder next time? Just because the government doesn't need excessive force to control their population doesn't make them immune to authoritarianism. If everyone is too lethargic to do anything, or too scared of the consequences, is it suddenly not authoritarian? The truth is, the threat of violence or prison time is all it takes to keep a large amount of the population in check. But there is no such threat for the people in power, leading them to do what they want under the guise of freedom and democracy. Tell me, how free do you feel when you have to transfer the money you made from your job, where upper management and the owner already profit more from your work than you do, to your landlord, who is providing the amazing societal duty of owning property, just so you don't have to sleep on the streets? And how free do you feel when you keep applying for jobs and have to pretend to love said job in the hopes of getting hired and getting the money you need to survive? The average person is trapped in a state of financial servitude, which is comparable to serfdom of the past. Your democratic freedom is a joke when it's at the cost of the general population and their ability to fight back. Most people don't even get the chance to care about these new draconian anti-privacy laws because they're too busy with their jobs. The reason why it seems like jobless people or petite bourgeoisie are protesting these changes is because they have the time to think about these issues and to research them. Most people don't have the time or energy to develop their own political identity, which is detrimental to a democratic system. Because if the average person is not politically involved, or only has a surface level understanding of what a good policy or law is, and what political system is in their best interest, then the few people that do get free reign over everyone else. So a populist charlatan who is good at being charismatic can easily convince a desperate, overworked population to vote for them, for better times, and then act according to only their own egotistical benefit. We've seen this story play out before, and with our current systems in place, it's going to keep happening. The Weimar Republic was also a liberal democracy, for example, and the Austrian Painters United Party would have never made it if it wasn't for the inaction and silent complacency of the liberal democratic parties. After all, the NS Deutsche Arbeiterpartei won by a popular vote, The only people who were in active direct opposition to them were socialists and communists, which is why they were the first ones to go. This is also why you might be hearing so much fear-mongering from the right-wing populist parties about the radical left, since the actual radical left are indeed their ideological enemies. But in our modern political landscape, at least in the West, the political parties are extremely right-shifted, so leftist ideas are barely represented, if at all, and the socialists and communists that do exist are too few and too scattered around to organize against the right, while the liberals don't really do anything. Leading to the next enemy, the other, the immigrant. Completely unrelated, but Palantir has proposed a system which will track immigrants in real time and make it easier to profile individuals and even predict behaviors. Javier Milei also proposed an AI predictive crime algorithm, which shows an extremely worrying pattern of governments trying to predict non-existing crimes. First of all, I hate how they treat crime as an inevitability, and that instead of targeting the most common reasons for high crime rates, such as poverty and a poor access to education, for example, they want to be able to profile individuals, basically gang stalk them until they commit what they consider to be an offense and put them away, possibly for life. Secondly, I hate the implication of predictive programming. It disregards a person's free will and treats them like a criminal when they are objectively completely innocent. People forget that it's innocent until proven guilty. Predictive programming literally assumes you will be guilty soon for a crime you have not yet committed. I thought gang stalking was supposed to be a sign of severe paranoid schizophrenia, but no, the schizophrenics just have visions of the future, where your own government can gang stalk you for maybe committing a crime in the future. It has been proven time and time again that harsher punishments do not stop criminals from committing crimes, nor does it address the crime rates. I mean, a lot of religious people think that God is always watching, yet they still sin. Do they really think that having Big Brother watching you all day will make them a model citizen? The people who propose these new innovative ways of extreme invasive policing and privacy violations are these soulless, heartless tech bros divorced from humanity. They have such a laughable gap in knowledge when it comes to sociology and human behavior that they don't know education access is one of the strongest predictors of lower crime rates. But that's assuming these people are too stupid to realize that a surveillance state won't actually solve these issues. No, I have a different theory based on their actions. I think they know what they're doing. Let me reiterate. You don't even need a degree in sociology to understand what must be done to reduce crime rates, and most governments, especially in the US, have access to the top sociologists and criminologists in the country if they really wanted to fight crime. I don't think they're so unfathomably stupid and incompetent that they wouldn't even consult some experts on the topic before implementing nationwide surveillance technology. No, they know what they're doing. They're intentionally ignoring what the experts and judges are telling them, what data has shown us, and what the science says. They want to improve their facilities to profile people, then catch and detain them because they want to feed the prison industrial complex. Furthermore, they want to create an atmosphere of fear, to intimidate any would-be opposition to their authoritarian rule. In the US, prison inmates are functionally treated like slaves. They often have to do manual labor, and they only get paid a fraction of what their work was worth. The prison complex in the US was never designed for rehabilitation. It's specifically designed for profit. This is not even a secret. Private prisons are legal in the US, and they are actively looking to make a profit. So what do you do when China is outcompeting you in the industrial and labor sectors, but your people aren't willing to work for the wages that are offered to outsourced workers? What do you do when you want to make America an industrial powerhouse again, to make it great again? You imprison your country's own population, you expand the labor force by force, and start making certain political beliefs illegal, so even if you don't commit a crime, you could end up in the prison profit complex. Therefore, we must also fight for the rights of the prisoners, because a lot of them genuinely don't belong there. Being harsh on crime doesn't reduce crime, but being harsh on and ruthless to those you deem criminals works. It works to intimidate the dissidents, to silence the outspoken. If you don't like your immigrant neighbor, simply tell ICE on them, and they'll be gone. But soon, it won't just be the immigrants. They never stop at the immigrants. They never stop at the communists. They won't stop until it's too late. The hand of repression didn't just appear on your neck one day. You were told it was just a doctor's checkup, to see if you had a lump in your throat. Then, the hand got tighter, and you were told this was just to make sure, for your own safety, that there's absolutely nothing anomalous in your airways. The hand kept tightening and tightening, but you thought the hand was that of a doctor. An authority figure would know better than you. The doctor knows what he's doing. He knows what's best for you. The hand just needs to get a little tighter. You just need to hold on a little more. Then he'll let loose. Then he'll tell you you're safe. But the hand keeps tightening. Second after second. It's so tight, you can barely breathe. You try to speak up, but your airways constricted too tightly. only a pathetic yelp for help comes out. And who were you calling anyway? A doctor? A doctor wants to save you. He promised. He keeps saying that it's for your own safety, but his hand hurts. By now he's choking you so hard you're close to passing out. You try to fight back, but by then it's too late. His hands are too tight around your throat. You're about to pass out. But you trust the doctor, right? He swore a Hippocratic oath. And he won't do any more harm to you. Authority can always be abused. Technically, every system involving a state apparatus is authoritarian, because the state has authority over the people, but the people are in charge of assigning leadership positions, or at least in theory. If there is no way for the common people to organize and fight back, if the state's promises are broken, atrocities happen. Does it make a difference if you get choked out faster, rather than slower? Just because we've been losing our rights over time, does not make it okay to further remove them. To punish those who have nowhere to go. To punish those who stand up against atrocities being committed under your name, under the guise of your greatest ally. None of this is okay. And none of this can stay the way it is. As the state and the government take more drastic measures in the name of safety and security, so must the people. Those who submit and don't resist, don't think you'll be spared. The leopard will eat everyone's face. Every face but their own. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. I'm very, very deeply thankful to have you. You can check out the description below for all I have to offer. Stay strong, and goodbye.